5 tips to lose belly fat overnight. Are you ready for them? Well, here they are. Have G-spot orgasms, have cervical orgasms, have squirting orgasms, have nipple-gasms, have anal-gasms. Yep, that's the big secret. Being well fucked and having deeper, life-changing orgasms is what is going to wipe out that extra weight. Here is why. Belly fat is largely caused by cortisol overload. When you are in a stressed out state for months or years, as most people are in the modern world, you are living off of adrenaline and cortisol. The excess collects in your belly as that signature punch. When you orgasm, your system is flooded with oxytocin, as well as other feel-good hormones and neurotransmitters such as dopamine and serotonin. The oxytocin acts as a counter to the cortisol and cancels it out. So the more orgasms you have, the flatter your belly gets. The deeper vaginal orgasms generate more oxytocin. More oxytocin equals more fat burned off. The vaginal orgasms, G-spot, cervical, ejaculatory, or squirting, create much more oxytocin. In order to achieve these orgasms, you need to open and surrender. If not, you will not get there. No amount of physical technique will take you over the edge if you can't let go. All of that opening builds more oxytocin. In the quicker, bust one out to go to sleep kinds of orgasms, you still get an oxytocin rush, but it's much smaller. Vaginal orgasms and even anal and nipple-gasms produce much more. Your metaphorical baggage. Deep, powerful sex is an alchemizer. It acts as a combustion engine. The road to these more profound orgasms requires that you be open, raw, vulnerable, and you let yourself be seen. You cannot hide. This is deeply healing and transformative. The internal work that it takes to get there burns through the dross of your past and your trauma that you carry around with you as excess baggage. Sexual energy is one of the most potent forms of energy that we have access to, and it is literally at our fingertips. As we own and inhabit our sexual selves, we come into who we really are. And the parts of us that weight may have helped us to protect begin to emerge. The things that we have stuffed down because we didn't want to face are catalyzed into action as we become stronger and more confident. All of that registers in and on the body as our internal flab, and baggage is burnt off. The pounds fall away. I have worked with people who have done everything to lose weight. They had trainers, nutritionists, they were extra disciplined about eating and working out, and there would just be these extra 10 or 15 pounds that they couldn't seem to lose. And then they would start having gourmet sex, the kind of sex that I teach about, where we are being truly seen and fed and nourished. Their hearts and their genitals open, and they are being changed by the power of this deep sexual love. And the extra weight evaporates. They don't do anything different, no changes in their diet or exercise. They just got well fucked. Deep, cataclysmic vaginal orgasms and powerful, intimate connections. And suddenly those abs were svelte and chiseled. It's magic. Sex magic. Well fucked all-stars. Robin shares how she overcame cancer, her husband's death, and metabolized all of that through her sexual explorations. And this resulted in her dropping a whopping 60 pounds. It's an amazing story and super inspirational for anyone struggling with the heaviness of their load and wondering how they can lose that extra little bit of physical and emotional poundage. Welcome, Robin. I'm so excited to have you here with us. One of our epic, well-fucked all-stars for the ages.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so let's do a recap of your story. Where did you come from? What happened to place you where you are now?
Well, in 2016, my husband and I got pregnant. And when I was 20 weeks along, he was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And I had to finish out the remaining pregnancy by doing chemo appointments and oncology visits and his surgery to remove his cancer. And he was stage 4. So our goal was to get him to see the birth of our child. And his cancer actually was very advanced. He had what's called peritoneal carcinomatosis, which is his cancer had spread to the peritoneal lining, which is what encases all of your organs from the outside in. So his cancer was basically in the fluid around your organs. So it was touching his heart, his liver, his lungs, everything at once. So we weren't sure if he was going to live to see our son be born, and he did. He Yeah, he had a 1% chance of making it to the 1 year mark, and he lived 18 months. So he died 20 days after our son turned 1.
Wow.
And in that time, especially from when my husband was getting more into hospice, my libido skyrocketed, which I think a lot of people don't expect. And they definitely don't talk about, right? Because I'm a mom and I have an infant, 1-year-old who's like teething and colicky and hard, and my husband is dying and he's in hospice. And I don't get to talk about how my sexual needs aren't being met because none of my needs are being met anywhere. And neither are my sons, because he's colicky and everything's hard. And my husband none of his needs are being met, right? Because he's dying. And so it was really just like a clusterfuck of emotion. And when he passed, I had a lot of energy, which I have since learned in your classes is more like my sexual energy, and like my chi was just like reverberating through me, because what I learned is when you're not dying, right, you're living, right? You're either living or you're dying. And being around somebody who was dying like 1% per day, I feel like it supercharged my body to want to prove that it wasn't dying. And so I feel like my libido went through the roof because I wanted to like thrive and kind of push away that feeling of death. And so
that's fascinating.
After my husband passed, I thought the best way to really burn that energy through my body, I was cycling like 60 to 80 miles a week. And through grief, I went kind of manic. I had all this energy that I couldn't burn. And instead of trying to burn it, that way, which wasn't really working, I couldn't really sleep. I wanted to look into like squirting and having a different type of orgasm to like gush it out of my body and release it in a more feminine way and lean into a feminine sort of healing instead of that like a masculine sort of healing, which is like literally fleeing, right? Like the fight or flight of like cycling nowhere in my basement. And so I looked it up online, like classes or how to, especially because I was a single woman, and I came across your classes. I found you on YouTube and Instagram, and that is how I found you.
I love that you had the insight, because that's very perceptive, that you wanted to process and release these energies in a way that was more feminine rather than more masculine. That's very profound.
Thank you. I also didn't want to lean into it in the typical feminine way of saying like everything is fine. I'm just going to superhero mom this. Like we're fine. Yeah. Like we're not fine. No one's fine. Nothing's fine. I'm actually manic. My sex drive is through the roof. I I don't know anything, like my future feels like a black hole. It's not fine. And so many people just want to throw themselves into work and become superwoman and, start a business and whatever. And it's just so overwhelming.
Yeah, that's so much to process.
So I really just wanted to lean into the feminine, and you talk about that throughout your courses of like your divine sexual womanhood. And that's where I felt like the language was being had that I identified with of what I was actually trying to find was, who am I if I'm not these titles? Which leads me into the next title that I got, which was 11 months after I lost my husband. I was also diagnosed with thyroid cancer. I actually, my doctors had suspicion that I had it the month I got pregnant. I went in for my annual exam and she noticed it in my throat, but I was pregnant. And so I couldn't, have a biopsy or go under anesthesia. And so we just had to put it off and watch it during my pregnancy. And then during my pregnancy, my husband's cancer took, priority. My cancer took the back seat. And then I had a baby and all the things. And so I just really wanted to lean into my femininity and heal my body. Another thing that you've talked about in your classes is like your throat chakra and how you have to speak your truth. And if you can't speak your truth, your organs can get cancer and get sick. And I didn't get to speak my truth as my husband was dying, right? You have to take the back seat and say everything's okay. I'm just trying to help my husband through this. And I had throat cancer because of that. And so your course helped me to like claim my voice, becoming a well-fucked woman, to have the confidence and the audacity to show up to myself and my real desires and what I really want to say and clarify my voice and stand in my truth. And yeah, it was a really life-changing experience.
So beautiful. So share more about how that transformation happened for you. So and I really want to applaud you for in the midst of all of that, because I feel like a lot of people would try to suppress this sexual urges in themselves. Like they'd be in these times of their life that most people would consider like so serious and like, grave. And so there's no place for playfulness or no place for sexuality, and try to push that away rather than really opening to that and using it as a touchstone, as a way to get actually deeper into and process and alchemize these experiences. So what was that journey like for you? Like as you began more of the sexual practices and took that on, like what did you notice was happening for you in like emotionally speaking and physically speaking? And how did that work for you? And, like dealing with all the stuff that you were going through?
I think for me, the biggest thing was in my sadness and in my immense heavy grief is one thing is like when you try to share your story, when you have something really intense like that happen, you lose a loved one or you get cancers, you have a tendency of wanting to overshare. I mean, I did at least. Some people don't share at all, but I have a tendency of like word vomiting, right? Because I'm still processing what's happening lifetime and it's evolving as it's happening. And so I got used to, trying to share my story and have people be like, oh, you're too much, right? Like that's too much. And I'm like, sorry, but like this is also happening lifetime. So that, response of that's too much. I'm like, sorry, that was Tuesday. I'm just catching you up. Like I didn't like pick the hard route. I'm just telling you, we're still getting bad news. And the only way or a way that helped me with some of the shame of people telling me that my story was too much or I felt overwhelming was to show up for myself And I felt like in the quiet of my own home, when you talk about how you don't need a lover to have gourmet sex and you don't need a lover to have the best sex of your life, I was mad at that statement. I was like, yes, you do. And I lost my person, but God damn it. What if I don't? What if I can do it myself? What if I can have these experiences in a safe and loving environment where I'm not exposing myself to, like we talked about before, sexual trauma or maybe sexual assault because I just go out looking for it. And, when you talk about that with other people, online dating sites, I have no idea what kind of sexual situations I could find myself in. So I wanted to love my inner child. I wanted to make sure my inner child felt seen and heard. And I am the type of person that when there's a lot of pain in my life, I want to be held, which is weird. I grew up with a lot of emotional neglect in my family. And so I didn't have a lot of support as I was going through these things. And the only way I could do that was to support myself. And you provided the conversation of how do you feel about that? And are you even wet? Do you even want it? Show up to things that you get wet about. And I was like, man, what is that? Who am I without these titles? Like I said earlier, if I'm a cancer survivor and I'm a widow and I'm a single mom, who am I outside of all those titles I don't even want anyway?
Right.
What if I'm, a beautiful, sacred woman with a beautiful sex drive that I still get to live a full and abundant life. And if I heal myself through sexual touch and the orgasms that you talk about, different positions in the towel, how it can heal different elements in your body, no one can ever take that away from me. I can't say, hey, new guy came into my life and because of new guy I'm this woman now. No, he didn't. No, he fucking didn't. Right? No one came to save me. I showed up for myself. And I had to champion that therapy, I guess.
That's amazing. I love how you articulated all of that and how that's what came to you, is that you are showing up for yourself, and what you said about who are you minus all these labels and identifiers. I just love that. So what happened then? So you started to presumably self-pleasure and self-massage and experiment with your body and have some of these orgasms. So what did you notice begin to happen and change for you?
I had a lot of mental stuff to overcome, right? I had a lot of what I didn't want coming up. I don't want to have to do this alone or be by myself. And when I could kind of overcome that voice of well, this is what I do have. And it was an honor to go through, to walk through that experience with my husband. That was an honor and a privilege that I got to carry on his legacy with his child, and if I had a good marriage and I was well loved, who am I going to be separate from that? And so I learned all sorts of things that I hadn't been able to do in my marriage. I had never learned to squirt, and you address that in your courses. And for a while, I had a partner after I lost my husband where every single time we would have oral sex, I would squirt up a storm. We had to get those pads that you put down, those pee pads. Oh my God.
I love it when I hear the troubles that some of these couples go through, excess liquid in the bed. And what are we going to do to solve this trouble, this problem of ours?
Pee pads? Oh my gosh, that's weird. So yeah, because I started to squirt every single time I had oral sex, which I didn't even know was a thing. And then I started to feel concerned. What if every time I have an orgasm, I squirt this big of a mess? We're going to have to pick our locations very carefully, right? Because
these are some of the things that happen with prolific squirters. I tell you, I hear this a lot. like it becomes a thing. You have to
Yeah,
think
like
about it.
now you can't just have sex if you make a puddle, you know, you
Right.
gotta,
Or a lake.
yes,
I've
or
had people have to convert their bedrooms from carpet to hardwood floors so
that's
that they
awesome.
could, yeah, so they could deal with that
That's awesome.
particular situation.
I recently got a waterproof blanket. I haven't
There
had
you
a
go.
partner to use it with, but I got a whole like tarp for my bed because those waterproof pads only work so far, you know.
That is amazing.
It was awesome.
So you had a lot of amazing squirting experiences. And so how did you feel? Well, overall, then I know that you've talked about bringing this really open. So when you did start dating again and you had new partners, like a very open, like voracious kind of attitude and energy that some of the men, you were at least one I remember you talking about, were
Yeah.
with was very like, whoa, are you even real? Like, how is
Yep.
this possible? This
Yep.
amazing, beautiful woman, and she loves sex. And like, what was that like when these guys were just so kind of couldn't believe it? Like, who are you? Where did you come from?
Yeah, you talked about in class iron cock somebody. Who was that for you?
Yes, Ironcock Ross,
Ross.
his
Okay.
legendary skills. Yep.
Yes. So I had an ICT, Iron Cock Tyson, and he was a fireman and he was delicious. He was like 6'7" and like all the wonderful epic things, right? He's the rescuer, right? Like literally the rescuer. And so I went to this fireman auction after I had um, finish your course, and I was just kind of on fire there. And so there were like all these men being auctioned, and you always talk about in the courses, you know, like free your boobs, you don't have to wear a bra all the time, you know, shake them, play the game. If men invented the game, play the fucking game, you know. And so here I was, and it was like the opposite, right? We're like in the woman's, like the lion's den, right? Like firemen are being auctioned off. It was just a wonderful time. And I picked the cutest guy in the bar, and my friend was like, we have to go give that guy your number. And I was like, no way. Like, no way. And she was like, yeah, way, we're going. She's a high paid escort. And so she was like ballsy, you know, not me, but she was like, girl, we need to get you laid. Come on. Right. So she walked up to him, and then I had to have something to say. And so we ended up hitting it off, and I gave him my number. And we had this wild time for like 2 months, and my sex drive was through the roof. I had to ask my vagina, right? Does he make you wet? Are you interested? And the answer was fuck yeah, right? It wasn't like no or maybe. It's like yeah, it's like fuck yeah or no. And it was a fuck yeah for me. And we had gourmet sex every single time, like 3 hours at a time or 4 hours at a time at his place or my place. And he would just tell me like, girl, you are exhausting. And I was like, first of all, you're welcome. Second of all, we don't have to have sex every time. You know, like if you're tired, we don't have to have sex. And he looked at me and he was like, fuck you. That, yes, we do. You know, like, how dare you say that to me? Don't act like I can't handle it. And I was like, I mean, maybe you can. If you can't handle it, that's also okay. We can rest. And he just didn't really know how to handle me. So yeah, he looked at me and he was like, you know, you look real and you feel real, but this can't be real. Like people don't have, you know, 2 hour sex sessions and squirt all over the place and keep maintaining that level of sex drive. You know, he kept feeling like, when is this going to go away? And for me and him, that's just how we were. And it was the best. He was the best partner I've ever had. It only, we were like a, I don't know, a ball of flame, right? We were together only like 2, 3 months or something. And then he had some things that he was going through. So we went separate ways, but that was definitely like my greatest compliment. You know, it made me wonder, like, do you go to the fire department and tell them that, you know, your new girlfriend is too exhausting for you because she wants to have too much sex? Like, that just sounds like a problem other people are wanting to have.
Yeah, I mean, you guys had so many problems, like having
Right.
to deal with wet sheets and water liquid all over the bed, and his
He,
exhaustion levels because
yes, he
you
had
keep him
to
up.
shampoo his couch and he was upset that his cushions had his cum on them because it went over his head. And that was still somehow my doing.
Gosh, I really feel for you. I mean, I have
Right.
so much compassion for what you've gone through.
Right. I told him
But
just go to the men at the fire department. They'll talk you through it.
tell them your problems. Yeah, tell them what's going on for you and see if they can help you out.
Maybe they can up your stamina by just, working you out a little harder. I'm pretty sure he
Oh my
also got in the
gosh.
best shape of his life in that 2 month span. And the longer
I'm
I
sure
was
he
with
was
him,
forced to with your stamina.
I
I'm sure
mean,
you pulled
and
it out of him.
right. And the longer I was with him, the more sculpted my body got, and it was just such a good way to lose weight and to shape my body because the more I was with him, the more, I'm working my abs and my thighs and my ass. And, I would just feel so confident. This one time when we were on his couch and I straddled him and we were, engaged. He just looked at me and he was like, "You are," and paused. And I was like, "Oh my." And he was like, "So beautiful." And I just felt so vulnerable, right? Because I'm like on him, I'm in front of him, I'm on his couch, I'm naked, I'm all these things. And that compliment has just stayed with me because it was like such an intimate moment. And to be complimented when you're so vulnerable and kind of like wild, just really set me free in a way. And it's like, I don't know, by the time we were done, I had like a 4 pack. I'm like, if I leaned back, I'm like, you can see my abs, and I kind of have a little bit of a V line. And like, my body just started to like mold into this woman, like you talk about a woman that looks well fucked, you start to get like a really shapely figure. And I was confident and strong. And um, God, it was just a fiery time in my life.
Well, I think that it's like that well fucked energy, that self confidence, the love, like that full, that we open ourselves up and we're truly seen and cherished and adored, and all of that together, plus all of the biochemical and hormones and neurotransmitters that are flowing, like all of that combines into this shaping that we could not possibly get anywhere else. Like I've noticed that, yeah, myself, that after the most profound lovemaking times is that my body just comes into this other, it comes into itself, it comes into its own like perfect sculpty shape that I never could have possibly done like in a gym or in Pilates session,
Right.
though I've tried, right? But it
Right.
doesn't come, it does great things with those activities, but there's another level that it emerges with from
Right.
really
I
profound sex.
For a while I was looking at like, okay, Robin, what kind of a body type do you want? So I like went to this like Olympic page and I looked up like Olympic volleyball players and soccer players and long distance runners, gymnasts, and each body type, to be a gymnast, it's like short, stout, broad shoulders. Volleyball is like long, lean, thin, and I'm like, man, if I'm going to pick up a sport, something to become obsessed with, which is something that, where do I want to put my time? Right. And I thought to myself, if I could pick a body type that I really want, I'm like, strippers got a lot going for them, like they have fantastic bodies because they got to work
Yeah,
the whole thing. Right. So
right.
I
Yeah.
feel like it's that kind of same well fucked woman vibe, that confidence, the way they can walk, the way they can own it, the way they own it in front of other people, the way they'll show everything they have. There's nothing to hide. They'll own you. You'll pay them for it. It. Like that confidence was just so alluring when I felt like so much of my identity was either forced upon me or taken from me. I wanted to own my power and have confidence in my femininity, the way that, sexual energy allows, and really just harnessing my femininity in that, like sexual dance or sexual touch, being open to that touch, and even opening up my breasts. You know, that's another thing that you address in class, was to like wear lower cut shirts, to not wear underwire in your bras as much, to not necessarily wear bras as much, and to just open your femininity up, put your shoulders up, pick your boobs up, perk your chin up, and show off your femininity instead of being a mom that, you know, always is wearing a bra and straps on the shirts and sweater. And when you cover that, like, oh, excuse me, right? Like right after breastfeeding, you're supposed to cover up, and you have to become this blob of a woman who you lose your ambition or your sensuality. And if you have sensuality, you're shamed for it. And I just was so tired of everybody like telling me who I was or who they thought I was. Like, aren't you supposed to be sad? Aren't you supposed to be grieving? You have cancer, maybe you should rest. And I was just like, fuck you. I am who I say I am. And if I'm horny, that's fine too. And if I want a partner, that's fine too. And if I feel sexy as fuck you, let me out. Like, let me out of this cage that you're like putting me in. And I think freeing myself helped my body change shape. And your famous line is like, who you are in bed is who you are in real life. And that has become a deep mantra in my experience through sexuality, is that when I became more free in bed, even with myself, to allow myself to squirt alone with myself, I think that's part of what else what also helps sculpt my body, is that it became who I was in bed and in real life.
It's amazing. I love how you've said all of that, because you had quite an epic weight loss. Like, apart from the sculpting and the chiseling and the 4-pack, you lost a heap of weight.
I did.
How much?
Well, I've since, what was that? I think I was at 217 and I got down to 160. So 217 was my max weight when I was 9 months pregnant, and then after pregnancy, I lost the weight. Down to 160 was as skinny as I got. So
yeah, amazing.
Can you talk about the importance of feeding your body well and not feeding it as much junk food, and the exercises that you were providing, and just like, I don't know, you talk about like looking down at yourself and your self-actualization and like smiling on your body and like treating it as this thing and thanking it for bringing me through everything I had also been through. And so trying to protect my body by bringing good things in, like if you have a happy button during such a shitty time, you should push your happy button. And if I can push my happy button as much as I need to, and get real sunlight and eat healthier foods that have higher vibrations, who could I become? And that is what felt really empowering to me.
So it sounds like you've also really, it sounds like it was who you were originally, but that became amplified, the not giving a fuck, like not giving a fuck what other people think and their impact on you, that despite all of these personas, that people have very clear ideas of what that should look like. You said like the grieving widow or the sort of victimized cancer patient, that you were like, nah, I'm not taking on all of that. I'm going to alchemize and move through this in my own way. And for you, a big piece of that was sexually speaking, that you moved through that by leaning into and really embodying and exploring your sexuality.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to see, who am I, like you said, from the inside, because if that theory that you get cancer because you don't use your organ in a specific place, right? If you trap your breast or you trap your cervix, I thought that same thing with my throat, right? If I'm not speaking up for who I am and what I really want, it's interesting because maybe that organ died too, and I did what I was told, like I was the good girl or the nice girl. And that didn't get me anywhere, right? Because I keep ending up in situations where like I don't really want that either. And that's not really who I am. And I definitely had some feedback, some negative feedback from my family of like, well, you're kind of bitchy now. And I was like, bitchy? Like, I've been widowed. I've been, I've had cancer. I'm a single parent. None of my needs are getting met. I'm not just a single parent, right? Like I'm the only parent, right? Like
Right.
the
Yeah.
amount of stuff that I have to get myself through on a regular basis, I just crave like eye contact with another adult. I just crave to be held. Like bitchy is like the least of my concern, right? So to be able to just speak up of like, no, stop forcing these ideas on me or telling me what I must want or telling me how I must feel. I tell you I feel great. I want to go on a date this weekend, or I have time off. I'm going to spend it by going to the beach and doing nothing. We have a nude beach out here. And I spent a lot of time out there to just let myself be seen for who I was now, and coming into who am I now that these things have happened to me. It just really helped heal me. And I feel like for a while, I lost a lot of friends. I morphed into this new woman that I had to embrace who I became. And one friend in particular, we went to a wedding. One of my friends was getting married, and we went to a thing where, what is that, where you try on all the dresses, say yes to the dress. I went to this event and I was encouraging my friend to get this really sexy, lacy dress. It was elegant. It was beautiful. It was the most expensive dress. And it was so beautiful on her. And I was really verbal about it. I told her, Katie, you look beautiful. You should get that dress. It's so wonderful, all these things. And my other friend gave me a hard time, and she said, I said, sorry, I'm just not very censored. And she was like, yeah, clearly. And I just thought to myself, like, why are we censored? Why are you asking that of me? Why do we as women have to like, why can't I cheer her on in that sexy dress? Why can't I encourage her to be this beautiful bride that isn't ultra conservative, but wears something that's got a really low back? Like, girl, you look like a fucking queen, but I can't drop the F word if there's too many Christians around or whatever. And it was, there were a lot of growing pains in that season of my life, even when I was becoming this warrior of a woman, this resolute woman. I still received a little bit of like, shouldn't you be, a little quieter, a little smaller, like let Katie decide what she wants. And I was like, girl, of course I'm gonna let Katie decide what she wants, but she looks like a fucking queen in that thing. Like, girl, like, go big or go home. Like, that's all I'm saying. I'm not telling her what to like or not like, but I just wanted more audacious friendships, more of that,
Yeah.
like gourmet women cheering other women on, to just open up, and
And to reflect what was happening in you, right? So
yeah,
as you're busting out of these restrictions, that you are feeling more open and uncensored, and you want the people around you and the situations around you to be in the same place rather than
yeah.
these old vestiges of who you might have been. So coming, in those situations, did you feel confident to keep going or just let that stuff slide off of you? Like, what was your process moving through that?
A little bit of both. I think as I was really just shedding the like body shaming thing that women do, I would encourage my friends through that. And some of them were like, we're not supposed to, I don't know about that, like, what if my nipples show through my dress if I don't wear a bra? And I was like, who cares? And they're like, oh, I can't and I shouldn't. And I was like, says who? Like, let it out. Quit body shaming. Let's just free yourself. It gives me permission to show up for who I am too, or if I want to show up like this and you feel shame showing up without a bra under your dress, then what am I? Stop, make it stop. And so sometimes I would get this feedback that was just overwhelming, like a heavy coat, you know, and I just wanted to take it off. And sometimes I just also have to know, like, that's just where they're at on their journey, that they can't allow that freedom. So it's just a little bit of that like cognitive dissonance, I think, you know, compared to how much growth I had compared to the growth that my friends did not have. And, you know, they aren't taking your sex class at home in their Christian marriages. And so, you know, I was the widow who was taking a wild sex class, learning how to give hand jobs with my vagina, you know, and I didn't know how to have those conversations with my Christian friends who had one partner and one marriage. And uh, I was just outgrowing who I used to be at such a rapid rate.
I love all of that. And so this freedom with your body, like you say, like overcoming any of this body shaming. And it sounds like you had this very open, like putting myself out there into the world. So you talked about the connection between your voice and your throat chakra, but it also sounds like there was this corresponding idea with your body, right? Like opening up and letting yourself be seen. And if I think about weight as being a protective mechanism, right? Like excess weight, often for women, it's a fear of really being seen, of being really sexually as much as big as they want to be, right? And so by putting extra weight on that, they hide that part of themselves, and they maybe reduce the amount of attention that they might get at them. And they're deliberately doing that, or at least unconsciously, if not consciously doing it. So as you started to come out, what was that like for you? Like in terms of owning your body, and then also that correlation with the weight dropping off? Like, do you see that all having worked together in your process?
Yes. Before we started this interview, I told you that it took me a while to find women that I respected. And in my journey, I had a lot of male guidance, mentors. My therapist was a male, and I just didn't really respect women. And the guy that was mentoring me said, like, what is it about women that you don't respect? I want to encourage you to go inwards, because you are a woman, you know? So what does that say about you? And let's explore that. And the two women who I focused on was you and Brene Brown. And the other thing that helped me, the reason I'm bringing Brene Brown into this is my tattoo here says "Just show up." And through my journey, she talked about how you have to own your story, or you spend your time hustling for your worth outside of your story. You know, you're always like, well, it's not my fault, you know, it happened to him, or I was a mom, you know, so of course I gained that weight, or I had cancer. You know, I could spend all this time talking about, you know, it's not my fault that I got cancer, it's not my fault I married this guy who was sick, we didn't know he was sick, you know, whatever. Or I could just say like, well, fuck, you know, like with chaos theory, it just fucking exploded. I don't know. And I had to allow, she talks about like writing a letter to yourself about giving yourself permission to make others feel uncomfortable. And so I think with my body, just 2 weeks ago, I went to a Marriott and I bought a neon orange thong one piece on Amazon. I had it delivered and I wore a neon orange thong for the first time at a public place. And to just allow myself to be seen, to show up for myself. This is what my body looks like. This is my mom boobs. This is my mom body. If I make other people uncomfortable, I give myself permission to do that. If there are people that want to look at me and say, you know, I'm a size 12, 14, and I shouldn't be in a thong bathing suit, that is their deal, because I am getting ample feedback that I am doing just fine in my bathing suit. And I had to just thank my body for birthing a child and for getting me through this grief and for being as sexy as it is, and like befriend myself. So I think to answer your question, I really had to just show up for myself, regardless of how I felt, if it was true or not, if I was worthy or not to be dressed like that in public or accepted by other people, is kind of besides the point because I already faced my greatest fear twice.
Mhm. Yeah. Yep. Fabulous. Was there anything else that you want to add to round out your story that we haven't covered that you think is important for people to know and be inspired by?
The one thing that we didn't really touch on is that I think men and women need to um, think about grief in terms of sexuality like now more than ever. I think, a couple of years ago when I took your class, like widowhood isn't really a topic that's on the table. And now I've been widowed 5 years. It's been 5 full years. And with the suicide rate where it is, and I think we should encourage more people to talk about grief and sexuality because um, grief always wins. People will either end up harming themselves or getting involved in other addictive behavior, high risk, choices to just burn adrenaline. And I think as women, creating a sacred, sensual place where we can heal our bodies by dealing with our grief, that we just become whole in a way where we don't take it out on other people.
Mm.
And so, like you said, instead of having the title or the label of if you're going through grief, you should fill in the blank, I think we should have more freedom to, I don't know, go deeper in our bodies and experience more internal pleasure and internal dopamine and internal juicy, gooey goodness.
Beautiful. I love it.
Thanks.
Well, thanks so much. And I love your story and totally salute all of your courage and strength for going through all of that and really coming through the other side in an epic way.
Thank you.
For my full Orgasmopedia on how to have all the different types of orgasms, check out my How to Be a Well Fucked Woman salon. I walk you through the essentials of G-spot, cervical, anal, and full body orgasms. Plus, everything you need to know to become a well-fucked woman. From self-pleasuring 101 to breast massage to lift, tone, and enlarge your breasts to the very best manual and oral pleasuring techniques.